Jaiket. This is probably the last show you're going to see, obviously before Christmas. So, welcome, Nori. How are you feeling after your illness? I know you were
Uh, I tell you
last
what,
week.
Gordon, that was the mother of all flus. That was terrible. 3 weeks, flat on my back, cold, hot, you name it, runny nose. Couldn't get my body temperature settled. Unbelievable. What is going on? Glad to get past it and maybe see Christmas without it.
Well, I have at least 4 or 5 young people in my sort of group of pupils that I'm teaching at the moment who've all either had that same illness or are still down with it. People are just dropping like flies just now. So it's a bad one.
It
And
is.
I'll bet you the flu vaccination doesn't cover this particular strain. It never
No,
does.
no.
Anyway,
It's your Donald Duck. Anyway,
yeah.
Gordon, what have we got?
Well, there's a
Well,
number of things I wanted to talk about, though. I know you and I agree on some of these things. One of them was obviously the state of the roads, because that's something that affects me in my profession a lot. And the other thing was there's been a lot of talk on the internet about why it is that Scottish politicians, political parties, and the Scottish Parliament in particular cannot be involved in achieving independence for a number of very good legal and historical reasons. But we'll maybe come back to that one
yeah,
later on in the show, yeah. So the roads, my major gripe, Nori, is that they seem to be making an effort to fix the roads this year. It's as if there's been some money given to the Scottish government to do it. But my pet hate is that every time they resurface a really ripped up road, one that is almost undrivable, I think fantastic, and I'm waiting for them to finish it. I thought, can't wait to go down this road. I go down halfway down, and it's brilliant, lovely new tarmac, and then it stops halfway along the road. They
yeah.
only ever seem to do half of it, and then when they come back to put the markings in down the centre line, only half the road gets a centre line. So, what is it about Scotland and half-assed road repairs? Why do they do it this way?
Well,
Any
uh,
ideas?
That's a good question, Gordon. And I remember being in Hamilton when the SNP were in council. They run the South Lanarkshire Council, and I can assure you, Gordon, the roads were tarred, the grass was cut.
Yeah,
Everything was done to a standard you would expect. Litter was picked up. All these things were done, and everybody was quite happy. Then they lost the election, and the Tories and the Labour took over. As
all
soon
right.
as they took over, we stopped getting good roads. We stopped getting the litter picked up. We had places shut down. Like community centres, leisure
Right.
centres. They were all shut down. Litter was starting to get up. You go to Hamilton now, Gordon, and you'll see a shell of what it once was. Only 6, 7 years ago. What is happening in our councils then? Well, councils are being starved of money. We know that. That's the claim. But
Yeah.
this started long, long, long ago when PFI contracts were brought out by the Labour Party. This is the Labour Party,
Yeah.
and now the councils are paying off millions, billions in some
Yeah.
parts of PFI contracts that should be going to the community. That's
Yeah.
why, and this, Gordon, we have to ask what happens 20 years ago can come right back to bite us 20 years since.
And I think, yeah, no, I think it's important for people to understand these public finance initiative contracts, which were invented by Tony Blair's government, as I recall, and Gordon Brown's.
Yep.
They had payback times of 30 years with enormous amounts of interest to be paid back to the people who financed the building of the new schools, libraries, community centres, and so on. So we're going to end up paying back something like 5 times as much as the school or the hospital or whatever it was actually cost to build over a period of 30 years. And we're still paying it. So we can't afford to have good roads because Labour basically forced us into spending a lot of money on these long-term contracts so that they could say, look, we've built all these lovely schools all under our Labour government. But They didn't say, and you're going to pay for them for the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
That's what we've ended up doing.
Well, the thing here, Gordon, is to, if we can, take political parties out of this for a second, right? And look
Yeah,
at what's behind political parties. If you look at Tony Blair, he was the biggest libertarian warmongerer, and a libertarian is a warmongerer because they need wars to make money, and that's what wars do. And then you have somebody like Rishi Sunak, the biggest. He was a multimillionaire. What's he doing as prime minister? He's in there to make laws so that he can safeguard his fortunes. So we're not talking about Labour parties. And Keir Starmer, what is he doing there? This guy's an idiot. But it's not Keir Starmer's party. It's BlackRock, it's Vanguard, and it's all these big companies that own them. Now, so when you have that kind of, when you're looking at the enemy as, and even the SNP are being corrupted, because look at, we're talking about PFI. You watch what happens with Freeports in 20 years' time. We might not be here, Gordon, but our kids will. And they're going to have to pay back that disaster of putting public money into private enterprise. That's what PFI was. So, so 20 years' time, nobody's taking a blind bit of notice of Freeports. Everybody's shouting off top of their heads, but we feel we're powerless because this onslaught's attacking us. But we have to, at some point, come together as communities and say no more. And I'll give you one example, Gordon. Yesterday, I was away for a walk, right? And I met a citizen scientist. Now, what is a citizen scientist? Somebody that didn't go to university, but somebody who's learned themselves about their own area, what they're doing. And she had an app on her iPad, and she was measuring traffic going past. I said, "What are you doing that for?" She goes, it was noise. She was really worried about noise and the lorries and what so. And I said, "Do you know this? I was doing a wee survey myself. I counted 50 lorry trucks going up and down past Drumnad Rocket. What's happening to our trees, Gordon? So she's going in worried about the noise. I'm worried about the trees getting taken away. There's other people here saving Loch Ness. The brilliant thing about this, Gordon, is people are not just now talking about it. They are doing something.
So
that is interesting.
So you've now got a local action group trying to save Loch Ness from the development of this pumped storage scheme that seems to have been forced upon them without their knowledge or without their consent by some company which has got some connection to the local authority, maybe. Who knows who gave them permission?
Well, Gordon, I can exclusively tell you that Springfield, who built these black and grey houses, which bring the area down. It's a colourful wee place, Drumnad Rocket. It's always got gardens and stuff, but now it's like grey and black. That's deliberate. They've got permission to build another 40. Now, we have, and the thing is, Gordon, they're going to under the auspices of saying, "Oh, we need it for the local community." There's a real big problem with homelessness in the Highlands, but nobody can afford these houses. And now SSEN are saying we want them built for our workers. So what do SSEN? What are they building right now? Wind farms,
the pump storage systems.
Yep. And they're wanting to take people in from down south and saturate Drumnad Rocket with English voices. Why is that important to think about now, Gordon? Well, see, when we go for independence, and we now find that it's at 48%, not 54%. That's because people have come up and skewed it. This is all part of a big plan to stop Scotland getting independence. If we just looked at it, what would scare Westminster most? Losing the oil revenue, losing the money from renewable energy, gas, you name it. They want it all. If they can't get it, they're in trouble.
Yeah, they're protecting their own interests. They're protecting the interests of their own wealthy business owners as well. And as you say, they're trying to force that into the Highlands against their will, as usual. And as you say, it does dilute the voting public, and it dilutes the effectiveness of any campaign that you could have, because when you start getting foreigners from the oppressor state coming in and displacing local people or replacing local people with themselves and their own ideas, you then start to lose the demographic battle. And also, a lot of younger people are migrating in from England, having families as well, or bringing family with them. That adds to the general feeling of almost like an invasion. Although you hear this a lot in the south of England about the boat people, this being sort of like an invasion that's polluting their sort of racial racial bloodlines with all these foreigners. We have the same thing going on actually, but with people migrating from the south up to the Highlands,
We've got a
who are
problem. We, we've
diluting
got
the local demographic.
Well, we've got the problem, Gordon, because they can say, well, they're different colour, different eye shape, different this, and they're different from us. When the English come
Yeah,
up, we can't say that. We can just go by an accent. And then we get accused of being anti English or anti something or anti. But yet, if you look at other countries trying to decolonise themselves, the exact same pattern follows. You've got incomers of whatever persuasion, people who have once decided that they don't want to be a colony have been induced back over to the normal side, if you like, and now they
yep.
go against the decolonisation of their country. It's worked at different levels. I'm just saying that we've got to be really careful of it. And, you know,
Well,
um,
here's the thing. No, here's the interesting thing about this demographic invasion is that it only works for one generation at a time. So if somebody comes in from, let's say, the south of England as part of a team who are building a dam in the Highlands for an electricity program, and they stay and they have children, those children are brought up in Scotland, speaking Scots with all their Scottish buddies, and that generation is lost because the attitudes that they get or they have are not coming solely from their parents anymore. They're coming from the young people around them and other people that they meet. And so it gets diluted. So, in order to maintain this level of control over Scotland, that demographic creep has to be maintained all the time. They have to keep feeding more and more people in to replace these generations that assimilate and become Scots. Because, as I say, it only really works when they've just recently come from England with all the attitudes that go with that.
Gordon, since John McLean's time, it's worked.
Oh, yeah,
It's
definitely
worked
worked.
through two different wars, people coming up, Scots emigrating, English coming up, Scots emigrating, English coming up. There's a pattern,
Oh, yeah,
and it's
yeah,
here. And it doesn't. Those people that come here take more than one, two generations, but it's enough to get them time. And then at that point, where they're waiting for them to integrate, everything goes nice and cozy. Everything's, we're all happy.
yeah,
And then at some point, when it's really crucial, like an election's coming up, that can determine which way we go in life, then they'll ramp up. The house is getting built, the people coming up, and then you get a
that's it.
downturn in the
That's,
people.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's
It,
happened, Gordon. If you go back in history, just in Drumnadrochit here, they built dams after the war when
yeah,
Scotland was really wanting to find out who it was. And when we got to World Cups, Scotland was rejoicing. And they started building other dams and they started building estates. There's always something they'll do to curb that Scottish independence campaign. And we've got to be really alert to this. People coming up aren't our friends. They might mingle with us, but at the end of the day, you don't know how they're going to vote in an independence referendum. And the chances are they're going to vote no. And that's
no,
going to hamper us again.
political attitudes travel with people, and it's not that English people are any worse than Scots or unpleasant. People are perfectly nice, very civilized. You can have great conversations. You can be friends with them, but when it comes to an election, they're not going to vote the same way you are, and that is just the reality of it. And that is very, very subtle. And this is the thing that the United Kingdom is fantastic at doing. It's very good at subtle manipulation of demographics, so you don't really notice it. It's the boiling frog scenario. The
Yeah.
water temperature rises so slowly, you don't realize that you're boiling alive. So this has been going on, as you say, for decades, if not centuries, since
And
the union formed.
the,
And
the,
it
the
will.
one, sorry, Gordon, one thing that's happening right now is that
Uh-huh.
the Tory party are having to reinvent themselves because
Right.
reform have come, and Labour, the two unionist parties, are ahead of them. So they've got to really reinvent themselves. And what they're doing is they're coming out in areas like ours against um, the onslaught of wind farms. They're against all kinds of houses getting built. So they're taking the place of where you think the SNP should be, and they're
Yeah,
going into those slots. And here's the thing: a lot of these action groups are headed by English people.
that's true. Yeah,
And guess who they're
it's
getting
always been like that.
to come to their meetings? Tories.
Well, there are a lot of what I would term middle class English people who hold very green views, right? And this is something that is almost across the entire demographic of Middle England. Everybody's interested in the environment. They don't want to build houses in the southeast of England because they don't have hardly any greenery left, right?
Mhm.
But it's all right to build them up here where it's miles away from everybody else. You're way up in the Highlands, nobody's going to really notice it. And that's what's happening. And then they migrate into these areas thinking they're unspoiled and at the same time spoil them by migrating into them. So you can't win against this. It just keeps on happening.
I
The
know.
only way to stop it is to have control of your own borders and to make sure there is no inappropriate housing built anywhere, especially in small villages, in scenic, beautiful areas, where that kind of development isn't actually necessary, nor is it wanted. And
Yeah.
if they do need houses for homeless people, build them for homeless people. Don't make £400,000 or £500,000 houses. There's no chance a homeless person's ever going to set foot over the door of one of those things.
No.
He's going to end up renting a damp room somewhere in a tenement, you know?
Well, the thing about these houses that are getting built here, Gordon, a wee Google search will show you that Springfield are owned by asset managers. And if you go
Yeah,
into their websites,
yeah,
they're inviting you to put money into their companies for a return. Now, land is who owns the land? It's always been there. Who's got? But somebody already has said it's mine. But surely the land should belong to the people who reside there, and that's the people who've been here for generations. If you move them and emigrate them, then you've got access to the land because their forefathers can't have it. You're part of that chain. And if you're in America now, after 6 generations, it goes
yeah.
back to those who have got money. And this is what we're finding out. Who owns this land? They're buying it up for pennies because farms, and this is the worrying thing, Gordon, we've spoken about this before, our
Yes.
farms are being decimated. And now we have to rely on big companies to supply us with our food. We're at the mercy of these big stores because our
That,
farms are getting absolutely decimated. Now, one thing we got from Aldi through our door, 6 pence for some parsnips, right? 10, it was 30 pence for £3 of tatties. These are all lost leaders, Gordon. Our farmers cannot compete. There's no money back for them for their crops, but the companies will use that as lost leaders to promote their ultra processed food that we have then got to eat.
well, that's a very good observation, Laurie. I was watching, I think I was watching this morning's BBC offering, the breakfast show, and they were talking about the cost of Christmas, right? And they actually said almost exactly word for word what you've just said, that vegetables are dirt cheap. Supermarkets are using dirt cheap vegetables to bring people into the supermarkets to buy all the expensive, high calorie, high fat, unhealthy crap that they are packaging up as Christmas food. When in actual fact, the vegetables, the meat, the stuff that we all associate with the Christmas dinner is fine, but they're using it to get people in the door to buy other stuff, which is definitely not healthy.
No, no, it's
And
plastic. It's
very
plastic
expensive.
glue that goes into these foods, Gordon, to make them last longer. I remember a loaf of bread from the baker. You used that in the family within 2 days, or else it was all hard and mouldy. Now you can have a loaf that lasts 10 days.
Yes. Same with milk. Do you remember milk used to go off after 2.5 days? Now it lasts 7 days, 10 days. Your milk can still be okay if it's in the fridge. How is that possible? Because it can't just be pasteurized, because that wouldn't kill everything, you
The
know?
problem is, Gordon, maybe even back when we were young, we were getting, it was, the Mother Nature provided food for us, and it was good and it's tasty, and our bones were healed, our bodies were healed by the food we ate. We came good from it, and it was nourishing. Now it's all done in a laboratory. Food is controlled. Now, there was a survey, not a survey, but a test by a leading psychologist, and he threw meat to a tiger in a cage, and the
Mhm.
tiger became so dependent on the guy for the meat that he found he had control over the tiger. That's not a tiger's natural response. But the
No,
lion's got a different makeup. He was wanting to still attack the man because that's where the good hot meat is. When a lion kills an impala, for example, it gets a kill and it starts eating straight away because
yeah,
everything's fresh, everything's nutritious. A slab of meat is not the same.
no. It's drained of all its blood, and it's already been butchered, and it's already been cut and trimmed. Yeah,
Well, put ourselves as the tiger. We're getting thrown all this this laboratory food, and the thing about it is it's addictive. It's got sugars in it. It's got starches in it. It's got chemicals in it that make us want more. You could eat
yeah,
a whole packet of Jaffa cakes. Why? Because the sugar content, and they're light, and yet they charge you an amazing amount of money for this treat. And
treat.
you could eat a whole packet of rich teas if you wanted to, you know,
One of
because
my
that's the way they're made.
one of my young
Addictive.
one of my young clients the other day, who works for a petrol station chain, which is associated with one of the supermarkets, was telling me that they're currently selling a giant chocolate Christmas Santa, and I think this thing was costing about 60 quid. There is a kilogram, right? There is 2.2 pounds of chocolate in this thing, and
Sugar.
that, yeah, just pure chocolate. This gigantic snowman thing, right? 2 kilos of pure chocolate in it. Who on earth can eat 2 kilograms of chocolate? I mean, it's
The,
ridiculous amount of chocolate. I mean, that's just all fat and sugar, nothing else really.
no.
Cocoa butter.
But you know this, we're people are becoming more astute to this. It used to be back in the day where you drink a whole bottle of iron brew. Now people won't do that. They're looking at water and they're looking at reduced sugars. More and more people are being educating themselves about what is good for them and their bodies. Because here we go, Gordon. We've got people dying of Alzheimer's. We've had people going into hospital for routine checks, and 6 weeks later they're dead because their arteries are clogged with this glue that sticks to us. Remember, the body can't get rid of half of this stuff unless we do serious activity where we sweat it out. A lot of us
Yeah.
don't. We're inside and we're contained with this stuff and we're still eating it. Food
Well,
is good. This
in
is the
my own,
thing. Can I
uh,
just to tie this up, Gordon?
yeah, sure.
Food for everybody watching this. Be careful what you're eating because unless you can understand all these numbers and glutamates and all the stuff on the recipe for the item you're eating, don't buy it. Don't
Yeah.
buy it.
Also, don't buy stuff that's wrapped up in plastic, that's covered in hard plastic containers, because it's been selected, it's been washed, it's been grown, it's been pumped with various chemicals to make it look and taste good, and then it's presented to you in a package. Apples and pears and bananas and oranges don't need a package. They've got
No,
a
they
seal.
don't. They
All you need
don't.
to do is put them in a paper poke. That's how we used to buy fruit and vegetables. You saw what you wanted to buy, you put it in a paper bag, you paid your money, you walked out the door. We don't need the packaging. It's never been necessary before. The only good thing about it, I think, is that there is often origin information on the label. It tells you where it was grown, by whom as well sometimes, and how far it's travelled and what the date of expiry is when it's best before. So I always have to go through vegetable racks when I'm in the supermarket and actually look at where everything was grown. And I always
Yeah,
pick stuff that was grown nearby that hasn't travelled far, that's going to support some local farmer, some local producer, rather than the big supermarket brands themselves, or from Morocco, or Tunisia, or somewhere else in the world that's gone thousands of miles to get to me, probably frozen solid in the hold of some ship. Right, that's not going to be good for it or me.
no.
So good,
The,
definitely.
the thing about country of origin, even I'll check if it's not from Israel because that means I will never buy it. But even if I go for a Seville orange, I mean, even now they're £2 or £3 for an orange, for a proper orange. When you eat it, it's like,
Talking about
wow, that's you know.
the ones that actually come from Seville in Spain.
So
Yeah,
right. Well, the thing is, if you were to buy apples in a tray, you were mentioning them, and they've got polystyrene underneath. You eat that apple, but be careful to wash it clean because it's covered in a wax, a colouring to make you. Because you shop with your eyes, Gordon, and you see a nice red. Oh, I'll take that. We've done that. We've got an apple tree just down the road here, and it's just a free tree. It drops all its apples off. So
yeah.
I took half a dozen apples, made an apple pie, apple crumble, couple of things, peels and cores, put them in the garden, decomposed within uh, hours,
Yeah,
brown within hours. See these ones in the trays and the plastic around them. Chopped them all up, put the core out. 3 days later, still the
it's
same.
still as it started to rot down.
Even the maggots, even the bacteria doesn't want it.
The bacteria turns its nose up at it.
Aye,
That's bad. Yeah,
that's what we're eating, Gordon. And our
yeah.
bodies can't deal with it. And that's what
Well,
we get diabetes, we get obese, and we get ADHD, and we get all kinds of ailments. We get sluggish, we get brain fog, you name it.
remember you mentioned some point back in the earlier conversation we were talking about the modern generation basically choosing not to drink sugary drinks but instead to drink water. Once the marketing people realized that generation was drinking tap water, they started offering more and more types of bottled water that was supposed to be great for them. And so now instead of just filling up a bottle in the tap at home, they're going out and they're paying £2, £3 for a couple of litres of ordinary tap water that they could
Mm.
have got for absolutely nothing out of the tap. And it's just the same, except it's not been lying in a plastic bottle for 3 weeks. And there you
That's
go.
right. It's the plastic that kills you.
There is too much plastic. It's everywhere. Oh, by
Yeah.
the way, talking of plastic reminds me of a piece of information that came up yesterday. Um, Ratcliffe's company, Ineos, which owns what's left of the Grangemouth plant, had been pleading with the government to try and save the ethylene plant. Now, the
Yeah.
ethylene plant produces feedstock for all medical plastics and lots of other things as well. And
Yep.
so he's begging the government to help. The Labour government has given £150 million of our money to Ratcliffe, who's only put in 30 million of his own business money into this to keep it going, to save 400 jobs. The SNP is claiming this as a huge victory for them. The Labour Party is claiming it's a huge victory for them. Jim Ratcliffe is laughing all the way to the bank, and it's the last tiny fragment of our oil processing capability that's still left. And the only reason it survives is because it's useful to England and it's useful to Ratcliffe. And it's politically useful to any party that claims they had something to do with it. But it's not. It saved jobs, and that's great. I'm all for that. But at what cost? Who spent the money on it? Mostly it's our money that was used on it.
Well, that's the first thing. It's our money. And secondly, again, what we got back to, it's not political parties that are running this country, or else they'd
No.
be looking after our interests, Gordon, because we give them our vote. But because they're on a slither of the vote, 30 odd percent, there's 70% of us don't vote for them. So they take that as carte blanche to go their own way. and that's the danger. When we don't vote, we give them carte blanche to go, well, only 30% voted for us, so we'll do our own thing. It doesn't bother. The vast majority of the country didn't even want us here in the first place. But here we are, so this is what we do. And then you get Jim Ratcliffe, a serial anti-Brexit, pro-Brexit, sorry,
Pro-Brexit, anti-independence. Yeah.
pro Ching Ching. Bought over
Yes.
Man United, immediately said we need money from the government for a new stadium at Old Trafford. Gets it, and now he gets money for his ethylene plant, which we need.
Yeah.
We need a plant like Grangemouth, which a refinery. This is what we want. We don't want one in Belgium.
If you remember, in exchange for shutting down the main part of the Grangemouth refinery, Ratcliffe was given a loan, a guaranteed loan from the UK government to invest in a plant in Holland, right? So the British government is paying money to a private company to invest it in another country, in Holland, which has absolutely zero benefit to any of us, but is great for Jim Ratcliffe. There's one other thing. I don't know if you noticed this, Nori, in your own supermarket or local store, but Ineos products are beginning to sneak onto the shelves in the cleaning products aisle.
Yeah.
You get Ineos dishwashing liquid, Ineos, washing powders, Ineos hand creams. And I'm thinking nobody knew who Ineos were. Even about 5 years ago, nobody had a clue who or what they did. Now, all of a sudden, they've got a brand and it's in your supermarket, and people are thinking, "Oh, dishwashing liquid, and it's cheaper buying Ineos products." Where did it come from? Us, right? From Scottish oil mostly that went into making it, but financed by our tax money given to an Englishman to keep his ethylene plant going while he reinvests everything else elsewhere. It's an appalling system. And we are paying for it not only once with our tax, but twice by buying these stupid products as well. We are mugged. We really are.
Well, sometimes, Gordon, the truth is so difficult to handle because it's so bizarre. And people, when we try to put this across to people, we get called doom mongers, we get conspiracy theorists and all the rest of it. But no, it's actually happening in your shops, in your communities. These people are taken over. It used to be, Gordon, that Heinz used to be a standalone company. Cadbury's was a standalone company. Now all these companies are under one banner, Vanguard or Black Rock, one or the other. There's only four big companies that produce food for most of the world.
Well, that's it. And when companies are listed on the internet, on the stock markets, anybody can invest, right? And so big companies invest huge amounts in buying shares and stocks in those firms, eventually take them over, gobble them up, and they become part of Kraft Foods or some other massive group.
That's
and
right.
eventually that gets bought out by investment management companies who want to buy the stock to make money for their pension plans. And so it goes on. And eventually you end up with fewer and fewer companies, which have got bigger and bigger and bigger until there's no choice left. There's just what they have decided should be left. And that's the way capitalism works. The big fish eat the small fish, the small fish die out. And so you end up with fewer and fewer big fish, right? And that's all you have left. Eventually, nothing is left but one big corporation, which has a complete monopoly over everything that you eat, buy, drink, drive. Everything that you want or need in your life will be supplied by one big monopoly firm eventually, and you'll be able to do nothing about it.
Well, it's happening now with our food. 60% of our food from supermarkets. Remember, we used to have a great system, Gordon, where you could go down to your butcher, your baker, and get just what you needed. You could get 4 carrots, 3 carrots if you wanted, if that's all you needed. You didn't have to buy 10 of them in a packet. Just 1, 2, or 3.
And you take what you needed and put it on the scales, and they would charge you per weight, and that was it.
And the other good thing about that, Gordon, was you could go down when you were short of money, and they say, "Come back tomorrow and pay it tomorrow. No problem. Put a wee ticket."
Do you remember the days, Nori, when kids could go in and buy a bag of broken chocolate biscuits?
Aye. I
you
do.
know, Bob. And these were the things they wouldn't be able to sell because they were damaged. But
Yeah.
kids didn't care because it was all just smashed up. It didn't matter. It was going to get smashed up where it was going anyway. So,
Right.
yeah. So, not wasting anything.
And remember the time, Gordon, where you could take back a ginger bottle
Yep.
and get money back on it? What a brilliant scheme that was for recycling.
You
And now,
still You still can with bars products, but I'm not sure about anybody else. There used to be a lemonade company in Lochwinnoch called, what were they called now? Struthers. And Struthers also, like bars, did a bottle return scheme. They were very, very similar to bars, and they made similar products like red cola and things like that. Full of food dyes, by the way, but very
uh,
nice to drink. But yeah, a
well,
great way of keeping the place clean and giving
yeah.
kids pocket money at the same time.
Do you know this, Gordon? Our bottles in our bins don't get picked up once a month. Our bottles get picked up.
Oh,
And now the council, Highland Council, have said we can't pick up bottles anymore. So you have to take them into the centre of Drumnadrocket and hand throw these bottles into yellow, brown, whatever. And it's
aye.
chock a block. Even those ones haven't been emptied. And when we got in touch with the council, they said, "Oh, it's been put out to tender. There's a company doing it." I said, "Well, the company ain't doing it." Oh,
Yeah.
is that a fact? That our communities have no clue. Our councils have no clue what's going on around them. It is that bad. It,
The other thing though is why can the council not collect them themselves and then sell the waste product to the reprocessing people? Because it has a value, you know. Glass particularly can be reused. It doesn't even need to be remelted. It just needs to be washed, recycled like we did with milk bottles, ginger bottles. Glass can be probably used 20, 30, 40, 50 times before it needs to be completely reprocessed. And it's just made of sand. It's
right,
silicate.
right.
Right? All you need is an electric arc furnace and you can make as many bottles as you want. So
I know.
again, it's a good product. It's made from natural stuff and it just needs energy, and you get that energy from hydro. Hydro's great for that. Surplus power can be used to smelt glass. It can be used to smelt aluminium, as we all know,
Yeah,
right? So there are ways of doing things, and they're just not being done because it's not making enough money for the companies. Did you know,
bang on.
Norrie, that most of the big car manufacturers are now abandoning electric vehicle production?
Yeah.
Because it's not selling, and it's not selling because it's too expensive. So they're going back to petrol and diesel. There's been a huge, putting on of the brakes when it comes to the greening of transport. It's stopping, and it's going into reverse, literally back to petrol and diesel, because that's what the car companies can afford to make, and that's what sells. Electric
Correct.
cars aren't selling because they're far too pricey. So there's
Well,
something wrong there.
they're far too economic. If you were to build, and the next logical step for that, Gordon, is a hydrogen car, because people much skilled than I have said they could change overnight a diesel motor to a hydrogen motor. So you're
Yeah,
working off of water to power yourself. That would
that's
never do that would never do the capitalists. There's no money in that. So they'll curb that idea and they'll do anything they can. I remember telling you about this black engineer over in America who
uh,
managed to make a water-based engine so it can run off steam, just like a steam engine, but it's a steam engine in a car. And he went
that's
missing for days and days, and they couldn't find him. And they thought he'd been taken out. He came back and he says, "I've just been in the police station, CIA, wanting to speak to me." And he's calmed right down. He's been paid off, or we don't
uh,
know what's happened to him.
but
But that's what happens, Gordon. If you get,
yeah,
even
well,
with social media, you can have a profile and you can tell people on your page what you're doing. That doesn't stop these capitalists coming to get you and stopping you big time. Because if you make a dent in their profits, that's like killing their mother. That
yeah.
is like that is to a libertarian. That is like taking the breath out of his lungs, taking his
Well,
money, his profit away.
the stupid thing about all of this, the short-sightedness with regards to petrol and diesel and oil-based fuels, is that you can actually make hydrogen using the surplus wind energy, which has to be switched off when the grid is overloaded. So if we are, as you know, a windy, rainy country, there's plenty of power coursing through the Scottish countryside, and it's near shore, lots of wind, lots of water. We make energy all the time, but we can't sell it all the time. So the
No.
machines have to be turned off. So why
Yeah.
not use that energy in those machines to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, bottle it up, and store it? Then you've got an energy supply that you can run a power station off of. Hydrogen is super clean, right?
Well,
Produces steam as a
you know this,
byproduct.
Gordon. These ideas are swimming in everybody's heads, aren't they? And I got an email today. It's from Commonweal, and they're shutting down for Christmas, and they were thanking me for donations and for reading their stuff and sharing it and stuff. And I was thinking, 10 years Commonweal, what have you done? And talking about roads and stuff, they've managed uh, to get Glasgow buses back into public hands because of their model and how they done it. And now it looks like that's going to be taken ahead. Commonweal will never get any of the recognition. They're still on crowdfunders to keep going,
I
right?
know, I'm not sad.
It, yeah. And it'll be taken by the SNP or whoever is in power next year. I don't know what's going to happen in these elections. I don't even care, to be honest. And that means that these people who've done all the work don't get any
No,
reward for it. And over
no,
10 years, Gordon, they've told Commonweal have said this is how you get your land back. This is how you get land reform. This is proper land reform, rewilding, and they get all these think tanks together, and they
yeah,
take information from other countries that works really well and put it into a bespoke situation for a devolved country. So, say we take some information from Denmark. Well, we know Denmark's a independent country, so it's not got the baggage of that Scotland's got. So they work out how we can get round the baggage and how we can do it cheaper and efficiently and pilot it and all the rest of it.
yeah.
And you know what? Over 15 years, 3 bills have gone through for land reform in Scotland from the SNP, and nothing has changed.
Yeah. It's all very well creating laws for yourself in a parliament where you don't have to enforce those laws, where you don't have to apply them and make companies, make individuals actually obey these rules. It's just talking. You're just talking about making rules, and then you have no intention of going out there and forcing anybody to obey them. So it sounds good. You sound very green, you sound very responsible, and you've got all of this great legislation that promises so much, but you do nothing about it. It has to be followed up with action, and that's the only thing that never happens in the Scottish Parliament. There's never any action to do anything that will actually follow up the legislation properly and keep following it up. It's not
Yeah,
enough to do one thing and then leave it at that. It has to lead to other improvements, or it's pointless. Because
I think,
unless you keep
yeah,
improving the system, it stays stuck right at the level it's at. And this is what we have in Scotland in every respect. This is why I highlighted the state of the roads, because they've been deliberately left to rot. Nobody in councils has them as a priority. Their priority is trying to fund social care, which is the right thing to do. And I don't deny that. I think they should be prioritising people first, but people need to get around. People need their stuff delivered, right? People
Gordon,
have
Gordon.
jobs. People have jobs delivering stuff on little bicycles, which are crashing into these potholes as well, and people are getting hurt. People are
Yep,
swerving around potholes and hitting each other. It's damaging cars, like the drain issue that we talked about earlier on. And the councils only ever repair half of the damage. This seems to be a policy. When there's a big road that needs completely resurfacing, do half of it only. And
I
that'll
know.
keep everybody happy for a bit longer. And that's basically the way this seems to work. It's
Well,
appalling.
you got there, I think, and then you went back to roads. But the point I was trying to get to was, and agreeing with you, was the fact that there's something against us, something working against us. And I think we have politicians who have been corrupted by the grandeur of politics and by the lack of backbone. They have no backbone. They have no Alex Salmond had it in spades. He would take things on and build a bridge.
Yeah.
He would build the Queensferry Crossing. He would show you tangible things that Scotland could be proud of. But this since Sturgeon, Sarwar, Hamza Youssef, and then John Swinney, nothing's happening. These people are infiltrators, Gordon. If they had independence front, back, and centre, they'd be having a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D. We've got nothing. And I tell you this, next May when the elections are happening, all we've got is to vote SNP to keep reform out. That's all we've got. That's what they're saying to us.
Nori, do you believe that reform is really as popular as the polls are pretending that it is in Scotland? I don't buy it. I mean,
I tell you,
all the
Gordon,
Labour and Tory voters would have to convert to reform overnight.
Here's the thing, Gordon. Said it at the beginning of the show. If we can clear political parties' titles, put them to one side. So there's no reform, there's no Labour, there's no Tory. Who are these people? Where do they come from?
Yeah, I agree.
But the thing is then, Gordon, will these people in reform get to be in power? The answer is yes, because these people control the media. These people control the newspapers. These people control the food we eat. These people control the roads we're on. It's not councils. It's not councils. Because the same thing, Gordon, is happening in Ireland. There's been riots in Italy. You've never heard of them. Been riots in Spain.
I mean, the BBC, for example, has been platforming Nigel Farage for at least 15 years now, consistently. Why? Unless somebody said, eventually we're going to have Nigel Farage as our Prime Minister in about 20 years, so we need to start promoting him now, and we need to elevate him up the ladder, and we need to bring his party into the public domain in a nice, steady way so people get used to it. And all the Tory voters and the Labour voters are fed up with those parties will migrate to him. And that is exactly what's happening. According to polls. Now, the polls are produced by British companies in British-owned newspapers for British purposes. I don't believe it. And I do not believe that the level of support for reform is anything like what it's being sold to us as. The SNP are currently polling 40%. I believe that Reform were somewhere around 29%, ahead of Labour. Labour had dropped back to 10%, and the Tories and Lib Dems were down in single figures. Now, that tells you that every single unionist voter has switched virtually to Reform overnight, within 6 months.
I'll tell you why Reform are becoming popular. It's because they're taking action. It's no longer about words and sitting in a meeting, a focus group meeting. It's about going on the streets, taking action. People want to vent their spleen. Can you remember, Gordon, 2013, 2014, and then over that, we were at our best when we were out activating. We were taking action. We were on marches. We were on demos. We were doing everything. Town halls were getting filled up. There was a euphoria about doing something. That's what the SNP have come back from, and this is where Reform are going to. And it's attracting people because they can become active in something.
It's because the Reform is basically selling it to them as, we want rid of all these foreigners. They're the ones causing all your problems. Therefore, if you get out in the streets and get rid of these asylum seekers and these asylum hotels, close them all down, get rid of the boats, everything will be fine. And this is what's motivating people to get out and join in these mobs, because they're more like mobs than
if Reform came along and said it's the English, right? Say they said something like that, or the Welsh or something, not foreigners, not immigrants, because who are immigrants? It's just a title. We don't know if they're doctors, we don't know if they're lawyers, we don't know who they are, families they've got.
Yeah.
We don't know. The point is, Gordon, they get people out of their houses and onto the streets.
They get them angry, Nori. That's how they do it.
Well, what gets us angry, Gordon?
All this kind of stuff gets me angry, Nori.
But what do we do? What do we do? We come on a podcast, we talk to people. It's
Yeah,
the wrong thing. We have to get out on the streets. We
yeah.
have to meet like-minded people. One of the best things, see Drumner's Rocket, there's so many things. Save Loch Lomond had a meeting in the school hall. I went along, it was absolutely chock-a-block. It was amazing. You found people there with different schemes and plans to disrupt, to upset, and take on
Yeah.
these corporations. Who are they? I said, find out who they are, get names, make it personal. All this information's coming out, and this is what they don't like. They don't like us coming together where they can't see us. And I said, wait 5 days or the next meeting, and I bet you there's going to be somebody in here taking notes, and you don't even know who he is. And that's what we've got to guard ourselves against. Because the propaganda is, Gordon, it's so easy to start propaganda. You can tell a lie, it's halfway around the world before the truth's got a chance to put its boots on. So we're up against this all the time. We've got people infiltrating our meetings. We've got people coming who we don't even know what they are and what their agenda is. We've got to be guarded against this.
Another thing we need to watch out for is AI generated deep fake videos, because I follow Dr. Avi Loeb. There's a whole series of astronomy stuff that I follow. Avi Loeb is one of the most prominent astronomers and scientists who is looking at the moment, an interstellar object called 3I Atlas, which nobody knows what it is. There's some talk that it might actually be some kind of technological artifact drifting through our solar system. Anyway, the upshot of all of this is videos started appearing with him sitting in his office, as he does when he does his interviews, and talking to camera. Except it wasn't him. It was a completely AI generated version of him. And the only way you could really tell was two things. The clock on the wall never moved,
Yeah.
and his tie was the wrong colour. And actually, Loeb switched his tie colour so that people knew when it was him talking and not the deep fake. Do you know, after a lot of he had to go on TV and talk about this. Eventually, YouTube took that channel off. They took that deep fake down. 2 days later, a new one has appeared. Same idea, same guy,
Mm-hmm.
different fake, but still the same thing, calling itself something else. It's insidious and it's so hard to detect it unless you know what you're looking for. And that is going to start happening here as well. We're going to
It's,
start
well,
seeing fakes.
it,
People saying things that you would never think they would ever say. And that has to ring a bell with you. Why is this person saying the exact opposite of what he usually says? It's a deep fake.
that's right.
So,
It's a really good point. AI is going to be there to thwart us, try and thwart us. But if we keep ourselves focused on what we want to do, and that's to gain independence, we can spot these things a mile off, Gordon. It's not difficult. But
it's harder.
it's yeah. But we've got to come together as people, unite together as a movement again. And we've got to say to SNP, you have got to get your ship in order. You've got to get rid of this top brass. They've done nothing and they've proved they've done nothing. Get rid and get people who engineers into that party, people who fix things, who see a problem and mend it, not people who put dot I's and cross T's. We don't want these kind of people. We don't want career people. We want ordinary people who represent their constituents at a very good level and are trusted.
It's a problem
Not
with it's a problem with the political classes in every country. It's once they get established and they've got a taste of being in government, they want more of it and more of it and more of it. They want to stay there as long as possible. They start to lose interest in the people they represent and start thinking about their own welfare and their own careers. And when that happens, politics starts to fall apart. It doesn't work anymore. So you actually need to change your government much more frequently, I think, or change your politicians more frequently.
yeah.
The other thing you mentioned earlier on, Nori, that the parties now, if you look at their electioneering stuff, you might get a leaflet through your door from a local candidate for the Labour Party, right? But they won't say they're a Labour Party
Uh-huh.
candidate. They'll say they're just a candidate and they'll say what their views are, but none of them, not a single one, will put the name of the party on that piece of paper. for fear that you will not vote for them if you knew who they really were. And remember how you were saying that earlier on? How do we know who these people are? We don't anymore
We
because
don't
they're
anymore.
their true allegiances on their promotional material. And this is happening all across every unionist party in Scotland. They're concealing who they really are so they can get into councils and get in as MSPs and MPs. It's slowly changing into this we don't know who we're voting for, it's just individuals nonsense. It's not. It's still the same parties. It's just they're
No,
not
it's
being.
not. And worse than that, Gordon. The leaflets we were getting, the party that on the paper was saying, "Well, we won't do what the SNP have done." Well, what are you going to do? It's not there.
I don't tell you.
Vote me. I've got lovely rosy cheeks, and I'll be your lovely candidate. God, get lost. And they're all like that. So
I was
politics has been dumbed down, and we can't be arsed with it anymore. So if
no.
we can't be arsed with it, what do we do?
Well, this is the other effect of this: is people become depoliticized. They lose interest in politics because it doesn't work anymore. Their involvement in it doesn't achieve anything, and that's deliberate. They want people
Right.
to be located from politics and feel powerless, so they can
Yeah.
be manipulated. And it goes on and on and on. We have to stay active. We have to keep looking. We have to keep digging down to try and find what the real truth is and get it out there before people get fooled again by some
Yeah.
other. And frankly, nothing much has changed. In many ways, things have got worse since
Yeah.
2014. And the propaganda has shifted from TV, which is where we used to be fed all this stuff, now to the internet. And the internet is where people get most of the news. And my son and daughter's generation get all their news, all their
Mhm.
information on their phones. And that means those young people are seeing this stuff that's being produced by people like Nigel Farage and Reform, and the BBC has a presence there, and so on and so on. But they're getting their information now through this new filter, which is beaming it directly into their minds. It's very Orwellian, the whole
It
thing.
is. It is, Gordon. And
Now
I
they're
do,
targeting
do you know this.
new
I say this to most folk. I say this gently. Look out your window. Does that, to what you see out your window, wherever you are in Glasgow or City or Edinburgh or wherever you are, has your place where you are got better or worse in the last 10 years? If so, does that, your town or city or village, reflect what the Parliament is speaking about? I bet you it isn't. I bet
No.
you it isn't. And
Now the
so
other
if that's the case, you've got a massive disconnect between Parliament and people. That is not good for democracy, Gordon.
And there's also this, we have this tendency when we operate on things like YouTube to forget that we actually live in reality land. We don't live on the internet. We live out here in reality. So
Mhm.
I'm sitting in the car park, right, and I'm looking around me. It's pretty much half empty at the moment. It's a kind of quiet, miserable day here up in Glasgow. A bit rainy, a bit cloudy, a bit cold. Usual, right? Not many people about doing anything. Don't see anybody doing any work. A lot of people milling about, going to McDonald's, buying things, buying coffees, chatting. Nobody's working. So where are they
Yep,
getting the money for it? Where do they get the money for all that stuff?
Gordon.
Probably a wealthy husband or a wealthy spouse,
No,
somebody
no.
who's doing a job for a British company and getting well
It's
paid for it. You don't
it's
know.
worse than that. People are in debt. People are up to there in debt, maxing out cards, second
And,
mortgages of homes just to keep alive. Just to
and
keep alive, eating
being
bloody.
encouraged in advertising to take out more debt and buy
Well,
things on.
so people are suffering. There's a war on us, Gordon, right now, and even psychologists are saying this is a third world war on people, because
Psychological.
if you're suffering from poverty, that is war. That is war on you, because you've got to then think of ways mentally to cope with this. That takes a strain on you and your body. It means you can't do anything that you really want to, because you're looking ahead 5 weeks, maybe how much will my money stretch? In
The
that
thing,
5 weeks, what have you done to better yourself? Nothing, because you're still wanting to figure out how to pan out the meals for the family or whatever.
Yeah.
We people are up to their necks in strife, austerity, and all the rest of it. And you know what really annoys me is John Swinney. I caught him saying that Scotland, he's done more for the Scottish children, bringing them out of poverty. Who are you kidding, mate? I can walk down my street and I can see the kids at school going into the shops buying all this stuff because the 25 pence allowance for school meals doesn't give them enough food, and they go and get the stuff from the shops, and it's all processed, ultra processed, but it fills their stomach, and that's all they're interested in.
Cheesy chips is what the kids get in the corner shop where I live.
Do you know what, Gordon? They go in for these burgers. They're in a packet, and they heat them up for them. It's disgusting, you know. But that's what's happening to our families. They're under this psychological warfare.
I agree.
Nobody's helping them.
No, it's sad. Nori, I'm sorry to say this, but we kind of run out of time.
We have.
But it's been a very interesting morning, and I think you and I have got a lot of things off our chest today that we've probably been on for a while. But listen, I'd just like to say, because I know I'm not going to see you for a couple of weeks, to wish you a Merry Christmas and your family and a good New Year up there in Drumnadrochit. And I hope all our viewers have a happy, peaceful time over the Christmas and New Year period.
It'll be stressful this Christmas in our house, and that's just because family are not here. Money's tight. It's not going to be a usual Christmas. By the way, Gordon, this is a commercial. Carry on anyway this Christmas. And if you want to buy into it, that's up to you. But I'll be glad when New Year comes around. I can get a whiskey down my neck and just sing for Scotland, Auld Lang Syne. And then Burns Supper comes around at that point, and then that's me. I'm back in my Scottish. Just something Scottish about that, and I love it. But like, subscribe, share if you want, and we'll catch up in the new year, Gordon. Have a good one, mate.
Okay, Nori, thanks again. And thanks to all our viewers for sticking with us. And a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to every one of our viewers. Bye for now.
Stand by. All the best, Gordon.